The faith that grants you eternal salvation. When he says faith that works is dead, he's saying like your ticket to heaven is invalid.
The point is that people will make is that God, if he knows the belief in your heart is genuine, he does not need to see you do any works. Because, and this is out of context, God sees the heart, people look at the outward appearance. Are we ready for the rest of James 2?
Let's get into the juicy part.
He says, "What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can faith save him? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son on the altar? Do you see that faith was working together with his works, and by works faith was made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. You see then that a man is justified by works." What did he just say? "And not by faith only. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also." Mic drop. Some people will take that verse where it says, "You see then, you're justified by works, not by faith only." You're like, okay, like, first of all, it sounds like James is contradicting what Paul says about you're justified by faith, by your belief, without any works. And then James like throws in here, no, you're actually justified by works. And there is an explanation that makes it line up perfectly with Ephesians 2, which we'll get into.
Yeah, you're going to have to listen to the rest of the podcast to hear that.
Yes.
So let's go back to the start and kind of go verse by verse, because there's a lot there that we can accidentally skip over. So what does it profit if somebody says he has faith, but he does not have works? Can faith save him? Next verse.
Okay, no. We can't. No?
Keep going.
Okay. Here's why. Okay?
Yeah.
This is important for the context, because some people will say James is only talking about your relationships with other people and how faith without works is not going to be profitable in your relationships, but you could still be saved as far as God sees you without your works. This is about how people see you. But we know that that's not the case, in part because of this verse. He says, what does it profit if you say you have faith but don't have works? Okay, so what's the profit? The profit he's talking about is salvation.
Oh.
That's why he says, can faith save him? Right? So it's obvious he's talking about salvation. This is a salvation issue. It is not just how people perceive you, right?
So then when he says the word faith here, he's talking about like the faith that grants you eternal salvation.
Yeah.
So like when he says faith that works is dead, he's saying like your
Saving
ticket
faith
to heaven is invalid.
Yes. There's some caveats, but yes.
There's some caveats?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously that's why we have to talk about this verse by verse, because you can't just go up to the person and say like, your ticket to heaven is your works. Like you can't just say that, you know, like somebody's going to clip us right now and they're going to like, you know, like that's obviously there's more to it, you know.
Yeah.
There's clarification necessary, but yes.
Okay. So the reason you bring up that point though, is to say, we're talking about salvation.
This is a salvation issue. And there's actually two places in James 2 that reveal that. This is one of those two places.
Got
right?
it.
This is a salvation issue. This is not like, I mean, even the previous verses, he's talking about how you're judged by God, right? Like you're a transgressor of God's law. God will judge you without mercy if you don't fix this issue of refusing to show mercy to the poor. And then he says, can faith save you? So this is like being saved from judgment, like God's judgment. This is not like just whether people like you or not. You know?
Where does the point come from, whether people like you or not? I'm confused about that.
Because
point.
It's a way to explain away works having relevance to your salvation.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Like, obviously, works have relevance to your relationships, but how does that relate to this concept of faith that works is dead? I'm confused on what that point is.
The point is that people will make is that God, if he knows the belief in your heart in Jesus and the gospel is genuine, he does not need to see you do any works to save you.
I see.
Whereas in order for people to see you as a believer, they need to see some works because, and this is out of context, God sees the heart, people look at the outward appearance, which is like a misuse of that scripture.
That concept.
That concept. Yeah.
Because if God sees your heart, essentially what you're saying is like, oh, I believe really, really hard, so I'm going to heaven.
Right.
But we have to get into the rest of the scripture. So I understand that point now.
But to address the whole heart issue, right?
Yeah.
Like people say, well, God knows my heart. You're absolutely right. He knows your heart. But Jesus said, out of your heart, your mouth speaks in Matthew 12. So that's part of your fruit. He even says, like, a tree is known by its fruit. Part of your fruit is what comes out of your mouth, because out of the abundance of your heart, the mouth speaks. Mm-hmm. Jesus also taught in, I believe it's Matthew 15, that all of the lusts of men and the evils that men do comes from the heart. He says, whether it's murder or adultery or lust or any sin you could think of, it all comes from the heart of man. What comes out of the heart is what defiles a person. But what goes into the stomach, talking about food, does not defile you. So Jesus specifically said, your fruit, what comes out of your heart, is your actions, and that defiles you. So you can't actually say, oh, like my actions, I don't need any actions to like prove my faith to God because God sees my heart. Well, Jesus said how God sees your heart is what comes out of your heart, which is your words and your actions.
Well, I wouldn't say that's how God sees your heart. That's how you can see your own heart. Because God already knows your heart regardless of
That's
your
true.
actions.
God knows before you do anything
Yeah.
what you actually believe. But for you to know that you
Yes.
are defiled and
others.
is in your fruit, which is your actions and your words.
So,
Yeah.
The point you're making is God knows your heart. So, like, whatever. Don't worry about if God knows if you're saved or not. Obviously, he knows if you're saved or not. The way you and others can know that you are saved is by identifying your heart. But the only way us as humans can identify our own and other people's hearts is by what's coming out of our mouth and what we are doing with our life.
Yes. And that's important to note because that's actually a correct understanding of what people try to do with James 2, which is that, yes, your works do reveal to the human mind whether your faith is genuine. But that does not mean you don't need those works for God to know you're saved, because Jesus said what makes you defiled, period, is your fruit. And whether you're defiled or not is relevant for your salvation. Hence, James 2 saying, can faith without works save you? This is a salvation issue.
Yeah.
Are we clear?
Sick. We are clear. Next verse.
All right. Crazy.